You don't know.
Like right here.
All right, here's my question. Who's the manliest man you know and why?
I got to go with Brad Cooper.
You're going with Brad Cooper?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the LL Bean look going. He's got the beard. He's just...
I thought of that this morning.
I already hate this conversation. Well, a minute ago, Charlie had his hair in pigtails, and that was a pretty manly looking thing. Now it looks good.
Yeah, very manly.
Are we talking? Do they have to be like alive?
You don't have to have met them. You don't have to know them. Okay. But you look at that and go, "That's a man."
Rocky Balboa.
That's a good answer.
That's a good answer.
I'm dead serious.
Not Sylvester Stallone,
no,
though, just like
Rocky
his made up.
Just Rocky.
Like made up.
Only Rocky.
All right.
Not even real.
Okay.
Chasing down a chicken.
Okay, here's mine. Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
Yeah, hometown hero in Anderson. Black Panther. You know, he was fighting cancer without anybody knowing. You know, passed away a couple years, like a year or so ago now.
It's probably 3, right?
No.
No way, 3 years.
What year did Black
2020,
Panther come out?
2020. Oh, wow.
Okay, if I had to give a serious answer, I would genuinely, not just because we're doing this, but I'd probably say my dad.
Yeah.
And why is that?
I think...
Unpack that a little bit.
So when I think about sort of what it kind of means to be a man, to become a man, I learned all of that stuff, as much as I did learn. I learned it all from my dad, you know, whether being directly taught or just watching kind of the way he treated people or lived his life. And so it's sort of the good, bad, or indifferent. I guess he probably is like my most accurate sort of picture of what a man is, I guess.
Do you think about that when you've got your boys, right? You've got 3 sons, so how much is that? How much are you thinking, I saw Dad do this, I'm not doing that so that they don't do it, or positive, I saw Dad did this, I need to do this in front of them so that they can see it?
Yeah.
How much are you thinking that?
Well, my boys are still pretty young, so not maybe as much as I will, I think, over the next, like, season of life. But I think it's like the small things where you're not actually thinking about it, that it really comes out when you just see, like, the way he just talked to people, or the way he helped people, or the way he responded when things... It's not the big moments, right? In my mind, it's all about the way you handle the big things, the big transitions, the big next steps, the big whatever. And it's not. It's the little daily things. And so, yeah, I guess I do think about that a good bit.
I would probably go with my grandfather. So he was from the Adirondack Mountains of New York, hunting guide, and had a row of cottages and was kind of the cook, chef, ran that whole thing. And then just one day decided didn't want to do that anymore and moved down to Florida where he had a friend and rented a bulldozer and bought 50 acres of land and just plowed the ground and built not like a trailer park, but like a mobile home village, like 3/4 acre lots, and cut the whole thing in by himself and just, you know, smoked Camel cigarettes, unfiltered, you know, had the white T-shirt and flipped them up over. And I remember one day, I was little, I was probably 6, 7, and he said, yeah, we need more room in this trailer. And literally woke up the next morning to a skill saw cutting up the side of the trailer, and he framed it in by that afternoon, and just like there was nothing that he wouldn't try.
Yeah.
And but the coolest thing is I remember is we'd go to the dump and take all the yard clippings and stuff, you know, and he would sit there and talk to the guy at the dump for like an hour. Yep. Which is cool because I always got the gun, I got to shoot rats, which is cool. But then he would talk to the mayor. And I noticed as a young guy that he would talk to the mayor of the town and the guy at the dump like the same person.
Right.
That's awesome.
And I thought, that's what I want to impart to my boys. Yeah. That, you know, whoever it is you're spending time with, whoever you're investing with, treat them all the same. Yeah. And Grandpa was wired like that. So.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll probably say the same too. Like, seriously, like I think my dad as well. Like, so my dad works at Clemson right now. Since '97, he had his own business. So, you know, he would have a beverage catering business on the side, and he worked at Clemson. So 2 like crazy full-on things. So, you know, he would work from Monday to Friday at Clemson, then on the weekends he would have his own little thing he would do. Yeah. And I'm thinking about now, it's like, man, he's like probably one of the most generous people that I know. When I was a little kid, like, you know, playing basketball, baseball, stuff like that, he you know, bought me a what's the pitchback? Is it called a pitchback? Baseball, like, you know, you...
Like the net that, like, bounces back at you?
Yeah. Bought a pitch back, you know, all the things that I needed to be successful in life, you know, like, he would do that stuff for me. I mean, like...
Sacrifice.
Like, for real, like, big sacrifice, you know, like, even, like, seeing him do hard things and make hard decisions, and, you know, he definitely wasn't the most, like, perfect person by any means at all, but even, like, so, you know, also, my dad's, you know, probably know this, but he's black.
Your dad?
Like, yeah, my dad's black. Surprisingly, my dad's black.
For how long?
A couple years. Been black a couple years. But you know, he's had to navigate being black and white spaces a lot. You know, and that's similar for me as well. So being able to, like, to ask him questions, like him to honestly empathize with me and stuff like that, and him to be able to, like, you know, give me advice on, like, what I should do, what I should say, like, you know, just to be myself. And, like, even recently I just went through something hard, and he gave me incredible advice, better advice my mom did, honestly. Like, just great advice. And it was just like, man, my dad actually cares about me. You know, and I just think, man, like, you know, he doesn't get everything right at all by any means, but, like, he just cares about me as a son. And I'm like, yeah, he's a great guy, you know. Well, yeah, he's a great guy. So love you, Dad. You're probably not listening to this, but if you are, I love you.
Probably working.
Probably working right now. Yeah, probably working right now. Or you might be listening to it.
For me, like I hear you guys talking, and I'm trying to come up with someone, and I'm kind of having a hard time a little bit, because in every season of my life, I almost looked at different men to try to imitate. And where I grew up, I was trying to imitate those guys that, like, truly, like, my goal was to maybe be the next drug dealer from my town, so I could be like that guy. Yeah. And then, well, he gets killed, so I can't be like him anymore. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I have men in my life that invested in me. At the age of 17, I met, you know, Johnny Condrey, who just took me in and just kind of adopted me, you know? And so...
Johnny's a great guy.
Right? So you start thinking, like, through seasons, I see different men as the manliest dude you ever know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I went from Rocky Balboa to somebody like Johnny. But anyways, so I was just thinking, like, you know, it's kind of hard for me to pick somebody.
Do you think men need role models? Maybe, do you think, period, they need a guy to look up to, or a guy to model themselves on? Is that a uniquely male thing, you think?
So. Yeah, I totally believe it. I don't think, especially the way the world is going now, I don't think you can unintentionally catch that. I think it has to be, I think you see something in somebody, because, like, to your point, Kaleb, I think about how masculinity changed over time to me. Like, when I first became a Christian, I looked up to a guy, Hank Brink was his name, and just a normal guy, ran a food service business, but had a heart for young guys. And like, intentionally pursued guys, and you know, his famous line was, "What are you doing for lunch?" Right. And that became like a discipleship over years. And I was leading a men's thing here, and I asked Hank if he'd come over and speak, and he did. And there were 5 guys in the car with him, and we all went out to eat. And Hank went to the restroom, and I said, "All right, what are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "Are you kidding, man? Like 2.5 hours in the car both ways with Hank." This gold. I'm like, that's the kind of guy. You want to be that guy that's
huge,
being a reflective, where you see something in them, like, I want that. And I remember watching him, because I had never seen manhood, you know, modeled. And I see him with his wife and the way he is with his kids, and how loving but firm he could be in a positive way. Right. And then how gentle he was with her. And I just thought, I want that. And being around that, and I think I look back on what has helped me grow, and it's been Hank and Robin and Walt and Roger and all these guys that, like, I want to become a little bit more like that.
Yeah. I even feel like, you know, even for my generation and stuff like that, it's easier to have a role model on Instagram. You know, so, like, you'll find somebody on Instagram that you want to be like, or, you know, somebody on...
Liver King.
Yeah, or, like, you know, Liver King or something like that. You know, you find somebody like that you want to be like. But the thing is true, like, trying to find a role model that you can touch, a role model you can get coffee with, a role model you can get lunch with, is, like, I won't say it's more challenging. I won't say harder. You just have to, you know, it is harder nowadays, you know, than not. But I know even for me, it's like, you know, even how Charlie said this, like, yeah, my dad is my, like, you know, somebody I look up to, like, you know, who the definition, but I feel like I have so many men in my life that I pick different things from that I, like, look up to, you know, and And I feel like that feels healthy to me,
Yeah.
you know? All of them aren't like in the church, necessarily, like as far as like in the same church context that I'm in. You know, some of them are in other contexts, and it helps give me a more holistic view of, you know, what I believe, the way I view God, everything like that, having like multiple men who don't look like me, who, you know, like it gives me like a holistic view of, you know, manhood. And so for me, role models are like a massive thing. I feel like you have to have them.
Did you seek them out? Did they come to you?
I feel like I feel like I more so seek them out. Sometimes it's just people who are right in front of me, honestly.
Right.
It's never like I have to go far to seek them out. It's like, oh, these are people who are right in front of me that are golden, that I never thought were golden because I never talked to them.
Right.
You know, but it's like once I actually just had like a short 5-minute conversation with them, then I asked them a question, it's like, hold up. You actually have something very good inside of you that I want in my life, you know? So it's like, okay, the question I ask sometimes is like, would 50 or 75-year-old Talon be thankful that I had lunch or coffee with this person, you know? Or if I had them as role model in my life. And if that answer is yes, then it's like, okay, I'll probably go after and pursue them or something like that.
And when you stop expecting them to be perfect or to be the complete package, they're free to just be better at money than you are, so it's worth your time to ask them about money.
Yeah, I more so realized that they're probably way more screwed up than I think they were. You know, like they were like way more like human and way more like have flaws and way more have like been through similar things, or like they just had so much more life experience. And it was like, oh, that feels great. That feels great. That feels great.
I want one of those.
But yeah, you know, so yeah, that's what I gotta say about that.
Yeah, I was listening to someone talk about this, like borrowing somebody's map that already gone before, you know. And for me, it's almost like definitely having a role model would be, I don't know, like every man should have one kind of thing. But culturally, I think in the Hispanic community, I don't know if it's a pride thing, but it's actually kind of hard to, especially even within the church. Like, man, I don't really want to talk to this guy about my issues, you know, like. And so I see that more as a 42.
That's interesting you said that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it is. It's almost like I don't really trust a whole lot of people, but at the same time, it's like, well, it should be different as as brothers in Christ. But for me, that was a big step I had to take. Like seriously, like even in our church, I see people. I'm thinking, man, how am I not hanging out with this dude, and how am I not making the effort? You know, like just stopping in the hallway, it's like, man, can I really like have like lunch or you know like. So taking those steps were not easy for me. Yeah. But it's the best decision I've made, you know, as a dad of, you know, 5 and under, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
the reason I said it's interesting when you said that was because you said the Hispanic community, but in the Black community, you have uncles, you have cousins, you have like all these older male figures that you just like.
Your family.
That are family. Yeah. You know, something about me growing up, it's like, well, I could tell you if like, you know, my dad's best friend and like so many people that like had influence on my life that were some family that some weren't. And it was just like, because it wasn't just like that my dad raised, it was like a community of men raised me, you know, and that's what it felt like growing up. You know, there was like a big community of men that like were uncles, that were cousins, that were like, you know, like, what do you call, like my dad's best friends. And it was just like, oh, this community of men like that my dad trusted, my mom trusted, like were the ones that raised me. That's why I said that was interesting though, because like you said the same thing about some like, you know, the Hispanic community and stuff, just like, it's like a community. Right. So.
You know, you're talking about at church, it's interesting in the church community how rare I think it is for men to be honest with each other. Mm-hmm. You know, like, how you doing? Oh man, I'm good. You know, God's good, praise the Lord, you know, life's good. And I hate my job, like, don't know what my kids are doing. My wife and I are fighting all the time, but I'm going to come to church and put on my happy smiley face. Right. And I like the guys that do what I call the second ask, and I'll go, how you doing? Good. How you really doing? Mm-hmm. And like, man, can we just skip church and go sit in the parking lot and have coffee? Like, that's the kind of guy that I want to be. And that's the kind of guys that I have tried to keep around me, the ones that are willing to do that. Because, you know, I think within the church there's this false sense that you have to have it all figured out, have to look at all, you know, I mean, really a church is a hospital if you think about it. We're all broken, we're all messed up, you know, but we want to look good. But when you find those guys that are willing to go, I don't have it, you know, figured out, but I'll go there with you and I'll show you some things that I've learned along the way. And it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like in war, you know, like, you know how to shoot better and you know how to throw a hand grenade better and you know how to do this better. Well, I want to be around all you guys so when the time comes that I'm able to do that. And a lot of that's just saying, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. When you were my age, so I'm 23, so I don't know, you say you're 60, right?
60 this year, 59.
Yeah, there we go.
Not yet.
59.
59, yeah.
Was there like anybody that you would say was like a role model to you, or like when you were my age, somebody that you looked up to that like you got coffee with? And like, what was there anything? What was something that they modeled that like you was like, oh, I want to resemble that whenever I'm 60 years old?
Yeah. So I had a radical life change when I was 23. I found Christ, and prior to that, I was a loner. Didn't want anybody around me. My grandpa, who was my hero, had died when I was 13, and so there was this vacuum of 10 years that I just tried to fill with a lot of stupid stuff. So you know, I would say at your age, I probably had a mentor continuously for the next 15 years. And I just sought him out because, you know, I didn't have it. I mean, my dad left when I was 2 and wasn't a great guy. Just, you know, he was broken. And so I didn't have any of that. And I thought, I've got to go out there and get it.
What did it take for you to work through stuff with your dad leaving when you were little? You know, because you speak, you know, pretty graciously toward him. Right there, you know, he's a broken guy. You seem that you're maybe at the point in life where you are able to look back, I guess, with some clarity and give a little grace there. But what was that process like? Because I'm assuming that took a long time.
Yeah, so pre-Christ, it was pretty messy.
Sure.
It was really messy. It was, yeah. But
so were you raised? I'm sorry, but was Grandpa such a big deal? Because after Dad left, you were sort of raised by Grandpa.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, raised by Mom and my grandparents. And another cool thing about my grandpa, I remember the day we were bush hogging a field, and he talked about masculinity.
You were bush hogging a field?
Yeah, it's a mower.
Look how
I thought the same thing, Finn. I was like,
it's an attachment on a tractor.
On a tractor,
like
yeah.
a huge lawnmower.
Yeah, big old lawnmower.
I thought you were hunting hogs in the bush, but great, bush hogging.
Context is everything, right? But we stopped, and he had to fix something on it, and he reached over to grab a cigarette, and he just, you know, when you follow somebody, you just know their patterns, you know the way they do things, you know, and he'd take that cigarette out, and he'd like, you know, tap it, you know, just the whole method, and he pulled it out, and I'll never forget, I mean, he pulled it out, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he stuck it back in the pack, and he twisted the pack, and he stuck it in his pocket. He never put it in his pocket. He always put it over here. And that was the last day he ever smoked.
Wow.
And I asked my grandmother later, I said, did I imagine that? And she said, no. He said it was not good for me to see him smoking. And he realized at that moment that he loved me more than he loved smoking.
Wow.
And I'm like, that was like, yeah. I mean, you talk about like heroic, you know.
Yeah.
But with my dad, I think all I saw was my lack. And so I just, you know, it was just all about me and what I wasn't getting and all that stuff. And then years down the road, I began to understand how he wasn't parented. Like I started teaching men's studies, and my dad just happened to say, oh, I'm going to be there. I'm going to come in town. And I said, great, God, what are you doing? What's this all about? You know, and so we're sitting around. And I said, hey, tell me about Grandpa, because my grandfather died the year I was born. And there was nothing. I mean, he worked all the time, never spent time with my dad. And I said, well, you know, like, what about weekends? Like, you go to church? He goes, yeah, we go to church. And then what about after church? Like, he'd sit and play cards with his friends. And I said, so when did he teach you how to love? And it was like, and I realized at that moment, this is just a broken little boy that I'm talking to, and I want to be like this broken little boy, and he has nothing to give me, because it's not in his tank. And then I started finding out all these other things, and then it really, my heart softened for him. Wow. It was like, he's just a hurt guy. You know, I know that I want him to be, but he's never going to be. And that's when the Lord just came along and said, I'll be that dad. I'll be that dad you're looking for. Psalm 66:8, I think it's the father to the fatherless. And that became my verse. But that helped me to see my dad in a different realm. Even to when he died, I forgave him, and it was that was a pretty cool moment then, from where I was to where God had brought me.
You know, most of I feel like my friends and guys, we all have dad wounds in some way, which scares me so bad now having kids, because I'm like, I can't wait to talk to their counselors one day about all the ways that I, screwed it up. But I think I've found, and hearing you say that like when you look into role models or dads or grandpas or whatever, a lot of times you're gonna find what you're looking for, right? So if you're looking to be offended or to feel frustrated at what they didn't do, or to find the areas they didn't live up, or to whatever, that's what you're gonna find, because it's there. But if you're looking for reasons to be grateful, looking for reasons to celebrate them and honor them, looking for things that you do wanna replicate, they're there too. And sometimes it's harder to, to look for those things in people you look up to and go, I'm gonna choose right now to overlook all the things that I should, that I could be bothered by, and I'm gonna pick a couple things out that I think are pretty awesome. Because I think that's sort of the grace I will hope somebody will afford me one day.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna choose to overlook all the things he wasn't that good at. And there's a couple things he was pretty, and maybe that's what Jesus is getting at. He's like, you gotta treat others, man, the way,
Yeah, and that's one of the things that feels like, even as we're talking about it, I was like, oh, that's such a cool coincidence. It's not a coincidence, but that our expression of faith is the one that calls God Father. Because there's something so in the human being about needing a dad, and what a dad in his best moments can give, and what a dad in his absence can wound.
Yeah.
And just thinking about, okay, well, we've all got some degree of father wound. We've all got some degree of what dad was and wasn't. And yet there's then Jesus modeling masculinity and saying, when you see my type of masculinity, you'll know what the Father's like.
What do you guys think is the, what are some character traits? What are some personality traits? What are some, definable qualities of guys that you look up to? I think getting at yours, they're responsible.
The ability to
right?
take responsibility, yeah.
You can count on them.
Yeah, and they'll step up, they'll own something they did wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the humility piece, that's the vulnerability piece. They're not living behind a mask, and they're not always trying to be something, or it comes from insecurity, but the ability to take responsibility and the ability to say, I did that wrong, I'll take ownership for that and fix it, and I'll leave it better than I found it. I think is one thing I've always found incredibly compelling.
And the ability to ask for forgiveness. Yeah. Like, I don't know why, but I don't see many men, to take that responsibility and then to repent, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, for men, I don't know if I'm the only one, but it does take me a couple of days before I can, but one of the things I would look at, the way if you're married, the way that they love their wives, I always want to see, man, what do you do, to love on your wife?
And that's tone, that's facial expression.
Everything. Everything.
All that sort of stuff, not just did we do date night. Just
everything. Dad draws me to I don't know, man, that's one thing I really want to grow, to love my wife, And so how do they do that? It'll really help me, to just copy it. What do you do? Please tell me, So, yeah, that's the two I would think of.
Yeah, the one I think of is being able to correct, but do it out of love. And I'm thinking about the character trait of pulling out the best in me, so seeing beyond where I am right now. And being able to you say, if I screw up, being able to say, hey, Talon, you did that wrong. But being able to correct, do it out of way of love, doing it in love, and pulling out the best thing in me. I know for me that's that's uber important, and very consistent.
Yeah.
You know, like consistency.
Dependable
consistency. Because, you know, if they're one way one week and a different way another week, it's like, all right, you know, whatever. You know, but it's like, no, if they're that same way, you know, very steady. So, yeah.
What about you?
Robert Lewis once said, and I thought it was great, he said, reject passivity, which I think we all go there, you know. You get in a fight and it's like, suddenly I need to go clean the garage.
Right.
You know, instead of just staying there and just, you know, pushing through it. And that, I think, is where you love your wife really well. I think of it like a wife well loved is like a flower that's well watered. You know, it ages well. So rejecting passivity, leading courageously, and that's just, you know, stepping into the fray. That's what we're called as men to do uniquely. And then reject passivity, accept responsibility, which is a big one.
Yeah.
And then looking to God for the greater reward. It's not here. It's like He's gonna fill it in. And so if I'm doing those things well, if I'm pushing back into it and trusting Him, then I'm not really doing it out of my lack. I'm now doing it out of what I hope is His fullness to me. Yeah. And so that looks like staying there with your son in the middle of, you know, you don't know how to do something, and like, we're just going to stay here together and do it, or, you know, and I think that's the whole faith thing and the trust thing to me is like, you know, heaven's looking great. I'm looking forward to that one day fine. But the fact that He wants to pour all that stuff into me today. Yeah. So in the middle of where at work I feel like I'm really missing the boat on this, and all of a sudden it comes along and go, hey, I can do this now. Or in a relationship or something that doesn't make sense. Just if I trust Him for that reward, then it's going to turn better. So
that's huge. I am oversimplifying it. I'm going to pick the one that I think is the one that I think about more often, because I'm naturally like a pretty scared guy. And I think that courage is like the most underrated attribute of people that I look up to. And I think because, you know, when you grow up in a small town with a small view, you just you know, you have a small worldview. So then you start to learn about other cultures, other families, other whatevers. And courage, you really have to like know somebody to know when they're being courageous, because everybody's so different. Different things intimidate them. But I just know that, you know, in seasons of my life where I've been unhealthy, I know there's people who can help, but it's just, am I gonna actually ask for it? Wow. Am I gonna have the courage to do? Because even if it's, you know, when you go through a season of anxiety or depression or something, it's like, I can't be any more humble. I already feel like the dirt of the earth. Like, I feel awful. But am I gonna just be courageous and ask for it? And I think, and not to just get to like, you know, straight up Bible right away, but honestly, like, I think about Christ's example as one of, if not the most courageous example of living your life, you know, rejecting fame, rejecting reputation, rejecting stability, rejecting all of that for the sake of serving the purpose that like you've been asked to serve, you know?
It's funny you say that though, isn't it? Because one of the things that people don't associate necessarily with Christian men is courage, like maybe the caricature, maybe the cultural Ned Flanders for The Simpsons or whatever. It's like, okay, the Christian man's kind of a joke. Right. The Christian man's not the guy that you want to look at, but you look at Jesus, he's taking responsibility, he's fighting big battles on behalf of the oppressed, he's standing in front of the Pharisees saying, this woman, you don't throw stones at her. Right. He's taking responsibility for things beyond himself, he's brave, he's going to the cross, he's not answering back when he's being questioned, all that sort of stuff. And I just think, man, what would it look like for Christian men to be represented that kind of way when that's the example, that's the template of masculinity we've got?
It's huge.
But don't you think that concept, I mean, the biblical concept of who Jesus is rare? I mean, you think about all the paintings we've seen where there's this white, pasty Jesus who just...
He's shredded.
Oh.
He's tall.
It's like, you know, he would just get the snot kicked out of him anywhere, you know? Right. But yet, you know, he goes into these religious leaders and just calls them out, you know, and he goes way out of the way to find this woman at the well who desperately needs help.
It's his internal strength that's so
yeah,
compelling to
he
me
is
about him.
powerful, man, powerful beyond measure.
There is that tough and tenderness, though, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? What is it? Blessed are the meek, right? Because they'll inherit the earth. And so meekness being kind of controlled strength, the ability to use and exercise power, and we see so many cultural examples of that being done badly. And yet meek men are able to hold their power and actually are trustworthy to inherit the earth. They're actually the ones you want in charge. They're the ones you want. That's the president of Ukraine right now, right? Standing in that gap and saying, I'm not going anywhere. Is the kind of ruler that we want to see more of in the world. And we do that in big ways, and then you do that in your home and your business and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I think, you know, especially if there's one place I think men have really blown it is in relationship with women. I heard John Eldridge say that, Adam chose Eve over God, and men have tried to fill that gap with women forever. And so going to women to get strength, which was me pre-Christ, as opposed to going to a woman to give strength. And meekness is not weakness. You know, meekness is the ability to be strong and powerful in a situation, but also, exercise love and kindness. You know, all of us could, lord it over our wives easily, but that's not the right, the meek way, the strong way is to say, hey, let me meet you where you are. Right. And across the board, and that's where, if there's an area that I think his example, I was thinking so much today about the woman caught in adultery, and here's Jesus, and he's writing on the ground, and I heard a guy say maybe he was writing the names of all the ones that were accusing her, and what a powerful way to come and say, who of you is who of you is better than this, and just calling them out, And
back to sort of what you were talking about earlier, like this. At some point, and I guess it happens for different people at different spaces, but at some point this sort of threshold happens where you realize, like, I'm not here to just get as much as I can from the world. I'm here to contribute something. Yeah. And I think about Jesus as just the earth's greatest contributor ever. Like he didn't care about what it had to offer him. It was all about what he could offer to it, how he could make it better, the people around him, how they could benefit, not how he could benefit. And that's just such a backwards, even down to the most practical, tiny ways. Like, I'm not here to benefit from you. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm here to, to speak to just the tragically bad way that men have butchered the relationship with women over time. I think in some ways it's as simple as that. I'm not here to take. Right. I'm not here to get from the earth what it affords me. I'm here to offer help. I'm here to contribute. I'm here to make a contribution. And that's just, it's such a subtle thing, and it's just so big. I think if you were to go around the guys that we all broke down as like they mattered to us, you could break down a contribution they made. Yep. It wasn't about what they accumulated. It wasn't about, and some of them were probably very successful, like they did well or are doing well for themselves or whatever. But it's just they view the world as a space where they can do something. They can offer. Yeah. And that just seems cool to me.
How do you think? I was going to ask you because, again, I try to put myself in the story. For men, like, how do you think, because I get frustrated with like me not like matching up like what I should do sometimes as a man. Like, I give you an example, like when my first baby girl was born, I was like, no, I mean, Lord, why? Seriously. Like, and I was ashamed of that. And my wife is like, what are you doing? And
just imagine her quinceañera.
No, I don't want to imagine anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all those things. And I'm thinking, how can I get to the point of like, all right, this is, I'm going to be the man that my baby girls are going to fall in love with first, but like, how do you get past the maybe shame of certain things? Because a lot of us, we just don't say things. Sometimes I really think I'm the only idiot that's like a terrible dad. I really do. Like, I'm thinking, is it me the only idiot that thinks like I'm the worst dad or the worst, like seriously. And so, like even today, like we just left church and I'm in the car, it's like, man, I wish I could be as confident as Kaleb or somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see you and I'm like, this freaking confident. I'm picking on you, man.
It's called lying. It's easy, Charlie.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you just walk in the room, just like, and I'm thinking, why can I be like that? You know, like, I'm not a real man and I do have long hair, you know, whatever. You know? But like, in my mind, I'm thinking, how do I get to that point where I'm like content with who I am and confident enough to really, you know, like walk.
But even before, you know, you answer that, one thing that is like very crazy is even how vulnerable you got right there. Like that is like, you know, even for me being younger, it's like, that's not common that you see all the time. Like the fact that you just broke down everything that you said just now.
It's legit. I'm not trying to
No, legit, for real though, like legit. But it's like, just even that is like very commendable, you know? And it's like, man, like even having that is like, wow, a man can be like that. You know, a man can like actually like talk about how he is like comparing himself to somebody else who he might not need to compare.
Which I do, which I do often though. Like in my mind, seriously, I see other men and I'm going like, dang it, I'm falling short of the real man, whoever I'm comparing to.
But even the vulnerability to voice that, because typically it just stays, you know, even sometimes for me it stays in. But even that, the fact that you just like voice that.
To another man.
To another man.
To another
and
man.
asking for help.
So we need
So
help.
yeah,
We're all looking. We're
yes, we're all looking at you. Yeah, we're all looking at you. The mirror's looking back at you too. So yeah.
One of my mentors once said, comparison is the greatest indoor sport in America.
Wow.
You know, like I want to be able to speak like him, and I want to be able to think like him. And you just got really cool hair, and you just every person I know wants to sing like you, right? So, right, you know, and I just think I think you just for me the big needle movement has just been an identity. That's not what I do; it's in who I am, and that's all I have to go back to. That if he changed me, then I'm his, I'm not my own. And so if you know, if it's about what we do, I'm in trouble. You know, I didn't work to become a believer. I can't work to become what he wants me to do. So it's just trust and it's faith. And I think the way it shows is what you just did. I mean, what you just did is you just got vulnerable. You just got real. And I think we do that every day. You know, you get on your face in the morning and you're like, Lord, I don't know what to do today. You know, like I got this thing I got to do and I don't know how to do it. You know, I had a meeting this morning at church and I walked in the meeting and I needed two things and like, I don't have them. And within 30 minutes, I had them both. And I'm like, when have you ever failed me? You know, isn't that funny? It's like, when has he ever failed us? But we go forward into something and go, well, he might this time. I mean, his track record's not great. Oh, wait a minute, it is great. You know, and so I think you just trust that process. And you remember it's, you know, he who began a work, you know, is faithful to complete it. It's not you, you know. I mean, we work out your salvation with fear and trembling because it's him who works to will and to act according to his good purpose.
But yeah, that's my daily like talk in my head. Like, how can I be better? And when I can't, it's almost like, well, crap, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? So,
But I think that's kind of what this is. Like what you just said is the thing you need the most. You need to have a guy like that in your life all the time. A guy who's not impressed with Charlee Buitrago from the stage. A guy who's willing enough to saying, hey man, that was stupid, why'd you do that? I mean, those are good friends. You know, the best friends I have are the ones that are going like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. Because, you know, and you know, you're able to talk about the things I'm going to talk about. Hey, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. I mean, not just say I'm struggling with it, but name it. You know, I lied to her at noon today about this, so I would look good, you know? I mean, like coming up here, you know, it's like, it's an honor to do this, really, you know? And I'm like, Lord, just get me out of the way. Wow. You know, because I just like, this is really cool, honestly. I mean, what's happening? And I got to think it's probably a little bit tougher for you because you're up on the stage, right? And everybody wants to be up on the stage, and now you have, well, I have to be this whole persona, but you're not. Whether you're a pastor, whether you're a leader, whether you're, you know, handsome young guy, you know, you just...
You got other things going for you as well.
Right
now,
pastoring the people up.
What do you guys think are the most common areas that men are living below the bar, sort of? Like, what do you think are the most popular shortcomings of the common guy that's going to be watching this?
I think this is a cliche, but I think it's certainly coming to the South and having observed the type of masculinity that's here, that's celebrated, I think most guys are just living hand to mouth in every space. Emotionally.
What do you mean hand to mouth?
As in like not, there's no margin. There's no margin emotionally, there's no margin spiritually, there's no maybe no margin financially. It's just we're go, go, go. I gotta stay ahead because I gotta hustle harder because I gotta get to the top of whatever that is. So the guys that I respect most are the guys that seem to be not in a hurry to be the best because they've decided that's not gonna make them happy. They seem to be deciding it's more about who they're becoming than what they're doing, that they're living with a sense of, like one of the things I enjoy most about spending time with you is that you are a successful businessman with responsibilities and you're never in a hurry when you're with me. You're with me. And you've got margin, you're not like, okay, but I'm not trying to impress you and I'm not trying to like get this appointment done so I can get on to my next thing because I've got these goals. You're present. You're living with a sense of margin internally. And I think that that's one of the things that American culture, sometimes even church culture, is so bad as it makes us so busy that we don't actually have space to stop and think about where are we going and why are we going there. Interesting. And that's one of the things I think is hard.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think most men I meet are they're just in a hurry, always in a hurry. We played golf on Friday, and a guy joined us, and really nice guy, and he was like twitchy, you know, and tapping, and just, you know, and we'd stop for a second. He's pulling up his phone and looking, and I'm like, it's like, wow.
What do you mean?
And he was a.
How long are we gonna be here? Like,
he was on staff at NewSpring. No. But it was just.
This is our last question, Shawn. So wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I think some of it is definitely cultural. I mean, the last 2 years have been a mess. But I think a lot of it is just the technology. The pace of technology has made it to where, you know, you have to know the latest score, and you have to know, you know, who got traded to that team, and you know, it's just. I just think that like information has become the new Tower of Babel, you know, and so it's just you feel so underwhelmed, you know. You're like, I thought at 59, I thought I'd be like farther along in life. You know, and then I look back and I go, well, you know, I'm pretty far from where I came, and I'm pretty happy, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, happiness to me is like I wouldn't trade my life with anybody. You know, I desperately love my wife, who's the best part of me, and got these three great kids, and the house, you know, and the dog. It's like everything. I'm like, what would I trade? I wouldn't trade anything. And to be at this place now, compared to when I was 23, and so I would just older guy to young guy. I'd just say, man, your life's going to turn out better than you can imagine. And part of it is you just trust the process. I mean, you know, you show up every day, and you know, you sing, and you let your heart be filled, and you listen to great teaching, and you have conversations with people that are willing to be and they're good looking. But you have conversations with people that are willing to be real. Because I like the time with you because you ask me hard questions, and I think that's the thing that, and so it's a matter of creating space for what is really important and not what the world says, and that might mean cutting out. You know, social media or a golf game, you know, whatever. It's just creating space. I remember years ago I was racing, and I wanted to get better, and my buddy said, dude, you just need to be more selfish with your time. I'm like, no, that's not the answer. You know, the answer is I got 3 little people in my house and a wife that I'm accountable to. So if I'm not doing my job, then you know, I don't care how much is in the bank or how successful business or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, because we all know people who were successful. I mean, musicians who were super successful and then blew it. You know, David, you know, one of the verses that haunts me is in the spring of the year when kings were at war, David was on the rooftop. You know, dude, go back out to war. You know, you should have been on the battlefield because you weren't, your life blew up. And so we have this great book with all these models of men that either did great or did terribly. And if we could just try to be more like the guys that did really, really well and not like the ones that really blew it.
Yeah. It's a pretty solid note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks.
Been so fun. Hopefully it's been helpful.
It's really good.
It's great.
Honor.
Cheers to all the men.
Cheers to the men.
Cheers.